Week 5 of Super Rugby is just around the corner. We have 2 games in New Zealand, 2 games in South Africa. Joining me in studio is our content producer Herman and chief writer Rob. Thank you guys for sitting down on the couch with me.
Hi, Jen.
Hello. Well, 4 games this weekend. I want to know what your predictions are for the first game. I'm going to start with Rob.
Game 1, Jen, from a South African point of view, a good one if you're in the office quite early and want to sneak out and watch a little bit of telly. Stormers away to the Chiefs in Hamilton. Tough game again for the Stormers, given that they've only had a 6-day turnaround from their last game, which was a brutal match against the Crusaders. So a lot of people will be thinking that it's going to be a really tough gig for the Stormers to manage to pull another good result out of New Zealand, where it's difficult for South African teams to win generally. I'm not sure if Herman agrees, but I think it's hard to envisage the Stormers winning.
I agree. The Stormers have a lot of injuries now as well, especially from last week. They played really well against the Crusaders the previous week. They sort of surprised everyone, losing by only 1 point. It's a game they actually should have won. They were like 10 points up with 20 minutes to go. But this week it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs, 2-time defending champions. They're still unbeaten this season, and yeah, it's tough. The Stormers have a few injuries. I think it's going to be tough for them. I'll probably be going Chiefs by about 10, I'd say.
Okay, cool.
I'm going Chiefs by about 7, I think, Jen. I just think the Stormers' defence might keep them in the game for quite a long period. The one thing to remember is that the Stormers do have reasonably good experience, although they've had lots of injuries. People like Brock Harris and Tiaan Liebenberg coming into the front row, at least they're no strangers to Super Rugby. So that's something that gives the Stormers a little bit of heart.
Okay, so you have Chiefs by 7. Herman's going
I'm
Chiefs by 10.
10 yeah.
Okay.
As it should have been the previous week.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll get it this time. Now, game 2, what are your predictions, Rob?
Game 2, another game in New Zealand. It's the Hurricanes, a rather fickle New Zealand team, entertaining the Cheetahs, a rather fickle South African team. So interesting matchup there. I'm a little inclined, unfortunately, to go the way of the Hurricanes, just because they've got home advantage again. The Cheetahs haven't shown me enough on the road to suggest that they've actually got the heart or the defensive character to pull
They've always been a team that travels poorly. I think when they won, was a few seasons ago, it was their first game they ever won overseas, and they're not in good form at the moment. They've only won 1 game against the Bulls, and that was a game I think both sides played atrocious rugby in horrible conditions, it must be said. But I think the Cheetahs will struggle. I'm not sounding very patriotic here, but I think it's
You're just speaking the truth.
Yeah, look, the Hurricanes, they're playing at home. I think they're a desperate side as well. The Hurricanes haven't won a game yet. I think there's some really talented players in that Hurricanes side, and one thing that's really been bothering me about the Cheetahs is their defence. There's gaping holes in their defensive line, and I think, yeah, I'd say Canes definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going Canes by probably a margin of about 12 points, right. Just because I think that they'll throw the ball around a bit. They'll want to exploit the Cheetahs' defensive weakness.
Yeah, look, they've got some dangerous players in Conrad Smith and Julian Savia out wide, so I think they're going to score a few tries, and I'd also go 12 to 15 points, Hurricanes.
Okay, so far no battles between the two of you. So yeah,
no.
disagreements. You guys are on the same page now. What about game 3? I'll start with Herman this time. What are your predictions for game 3?
Game 3, Lions hosting the Blues at Ellis Park. That's a very tough game. I actually chatted to Rob earlier about it. The Blues are a very, very talented team. They're coached by John Kirwan, who's a very experienced coach, just a guy who's proven himself as a coach before. He was a great player as well on the wing for the All Blacks, and of course Graham Henry's in their side as well. He also helps with the coaching, so a very talented team. A lot of All Blacks in that side, but very inconsistent. They're almost a bit like the French. You can't predict on the Blues. You can't bet on them. But then, having said that, the Lions, if you look at it on paper and you look at 15 against 15, the Blues really should easily beat the Lions. I'd say the Blues will be in a fairly comfortable lead towards the end, but the Lions will always score towards the end with the altitude and all that catching up with the Blues. So I'd say the Lions will come back at the end, but the Blues will just sneak it by 3 points.
Okay. Rob, do you agree?
We were clashing violently. I'm going Blues by 4 points.
Oh, wow.
Although that's not a great departure from our general thinking. I just think that a 3 o'clock kickoff, especially on the Highfield, it's quite nice that you get an afternoon game of rugby for a change. All that does, though, is perhaps make the conditions even more conducive to running rugby, which should suit the Blues perhaps a little bit more. They'll certainly want to put the ball through the hands, and they do have far bigger names games on paper. So again, a little bit reluctantly, and giving the Lions a chance, I've still got to say that the Blues probably will sneak it.
And then we head to game 4. Rob, what are your predictions for game 4?
Jen, this is the big one, I suppose, of the weekend, the sort of the South African feature match, really. Two pretty informed sides, and both title aspirant sides. The Sharks, who are the overall log leaders, and certainly the best team by a country mile in the South African Conference thus far, tackling a red side who were the 2011 champions at Kings Park. We've seen Gates improving quite a lot as the momentum gathers, as the belief builds in Durban that the Sharks can finally break their duck and bring home that long-awaited Super Rugby silverware. So quite a lot of excitement in Durban, and I have a feeling that the sort of home fervour should help power the Sharks to a victory. I'm going for the Sharks by perhaps as much as 9 points, which is no real disrespect to the Reds, because they've certainly got a puncher's chance as well. Their team is laden with wallabies, very established players, and when you've got people like Quade Cooper and Will Genia pulling their sort of attacking strings, you can never underestimate a team like that. But I still think the Sharks might just have enough in the tank to be able to win reasonably comfortably.
Yeah, I must say I agree with Rob there. You know, the Sharks playing at home, they've got Jake White. I think Jake White, being a coach of the Sharks now, he makes a massive difference to that side. It was mentioned during the week as well that the crowd, they're expecting quite a big crowd in Durban this week. As the season wore on, it's sort of slowly gotten better and better. I think it plays a big role. And yeah, I think the Sharks, 15 against 15, they just have probably a stronger side, definitely a stronger pack. I think up front in the scrums, the Sharks will dominate. Yes, the Reds have some dangerous backs, especially Cooper and Genia, the halfbacks, but I think line-out scrums up front, the Sharks will probably be just a bit too strong, and with the home crowd, if you combine all that, I'll say Sharks. I'm going Sharks by 10.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I'm a little bit worried about, Jen, is the fact that the Sharks have got a couple of injuries. They're going to be missing Peter Steph du Toit, we've just learned, which is a bit of a blow to them in the second row. He's been in very good form. But they've got a youngster, very tall, gangly youngster by the name of Stefan Levis, who's come into the side. And he's quite a decent prospect. I've been very impressed with his line-out play. So I don't think he's necessarily going to weaken them. The absence of Paul Jordan at outside centre is also a little bit of a blow for the Sharks. But they've still got enough squad depth to be able to pull this one off.
Okay, great. Well, I look forward to seeing if your predictions are correct and who wins that small disagreement that you had between the two of you. How can our viewers follow live updates and share their photos if they're at a game?
Jen, we do, as you said, we do live updates on all the major South African matches. We invite fans to send in their photographs. We'll post them if they're even half interesting from the stadiums. We always like to get fan input. And of course, we also have a big presence on Twitter and Facebook, both as Sport24 and as individuals. All of the writers are up on Twitter as individuals as well.